Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of GDDV 100, Game Theory 1. My name is Kasanas. Guys, in the last episode we talked about game and we really discussed what game is and the academic definition of game. And kind of at the end I said, hey, let's not be too harsh on how we're defining game. Let's really concentrate on creating awesome stuff. So today, what we're going to talk about is, again, what is a game? And we're going to explore the idea of rules, because rules is a very important part of game. All right, let's get started. Now let's just go back for a minute and look at the definition, my definition of game. Again, this is mine. It's kind of what I worked on. This is what I came up with. A game is a system designed with the intent to thrill, in which players, bound by rules, overcome obstacles to achieve a specific result to a stated objective with a variable possible outcome. Doesn't that sound fun? Doesn't it sound fun to play a game? Anyway, guys, there's a couple of really important things in here. Games are systems, and they're interactive systems, so they're open systems. And we're going to take a look at systems in the next video. In this particular video, however, we're really going to examine the idea of rules and what rules means. And it's not the idea of mechanics as much as it is the rules, the underlying rules of a particular game. Okay? Last thing, games involve a stated goal, overcoming obstacles that stand in the way of that goal. Okay, awesome. So, like I said, let's talk about the idea of rules. And when I say games are governed by rules, what exactly do you think that means? A lot of people, when I ask this, a lot of my students, when I ask this question, will tell me about the rules of a board game and how the board game has a set of rules that you can read about on the back of the board or on the back of the box. And yes, that's absolutely a set of rules. In fact, if we take a look at the rules of tic-tac-toe, then we can see that the game is played on a 3x3 grid by 2 players. That's one of the rules. Player 1 is X and player 2 is O. Player 1 goes first, marking an X in one of the 9 grid spaces. Player 2 marks an O in one of the remaining grid spaces. And then the players alternate turns until eventually a player wins, if they have created a line of their marks horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Then the game is a draw otherwise. And we can all agree that this would be the set of rules that you'd work out before the game began, right? You'd sit down and you'd draw your grid and you'd work out who was player 1, who was player 2, and all of that kind of stuff. So we can all agree that these are the rules. Now, oftentimes in class, if this was a live class, we'd agree upon the rules, and then I'd ask for a volunteer. And then that volunteer would come up, and I'd let them pick either X or O, and they would either start or go after me. And after a couple of marks were placed on the board, I would stand in front of the student and not allow them to get close to the board. So they couldn't put any more marks on the board at all. Or I would erase one of their marks on the board. I would do something like that wasn't explicitly stated in those additional rules, or those rules that we talked about originally. And right away that tells us that the rules aren't just the rules that are printed on the back of the box, right? It's not just those rules. There's a whole bunch of additional rules that we have to consider. The 3 set of rules that we want to consider, and again, this comes from Rules of Play by Salen and Zimmerman. Awesome book, awesome book. The 3 set of rules that we want to talk about today are operational rules, implicit rules, and constitutive rules. And the operational rules are, just as we discussed, the rules on the back of a box. That's exactly what they are, all the rules on the back of the box. Implicit rules are rules that are accepted by society. They're the etiquette that everyone accepts as normal play behavior, right? I can't push someone away who's marking their X, or I can't, block with my hand so they can't get to any of the grid spaces. I can't do these things. These are unwritten rules, and they're what culturally we define as etiquette or as a rule set. These are unspoken rules, unwritten rules that everyone automatically agrees to, right? I can't be playing tic-tac-toe and I can't suddenly break someone's fingers so they can't write anymore and say I've won the game, right? All of these rules are implicit. They're implied rules. And the last set of rules are the constitutive rules. Constitutive rules are an underlying mathematical structure that can be created regardless of whether or not we can see a board. It's the mathematical outcome of the game. It is the mathematical opportunities within the game. It's the underlying mathematics that really control how a game operates. So, the operational rules and implicit rules are typically very easy to demonstrate, right? Operational rules are those that are written down, and therefore they're known to everyone automatically. Implicit rules can be a little more tricky, right? If you're from somewhere else, if you have different cultural background or different society that you hang around with, you might have like a different social circle you hang around with. You might have different rules that you think are operational rules, and they're actually implicit rules. So, for example, a house rule. If you're playing a game and you've got some house rule that you've always used, when you do so, if they're not openly stated, they're not operational rules yet, and they are really implicit rules. Until they are openly stated and you say this is the particular rule, that's when it moves from an implicit rule into an operational rule, right? So for house rules as an example. Now, when we take a look at constitutive rules, or particularly the constitutive rules for tic-tac-toe, it's interesting when we take a look at what this means. And the constitutive rules, like I said, are really the underlying mathematical possibilities of any particular game that you're playing. If we take a look at tic-tac-toe, there was a combinatorics study that was done years ago. And this combinatorics study came back and said there are only 138 terminal board positions. If you take a look at reflections and rotations, like board symmetries, if you take a look at all this kind of stuff, there's only 138 terminal board positions. So mathematically, there's only 138 ways that this game can particularly end. There are 91 distinct positions that are won by X and 44 distinct positions that are won by O if X goes first and O goes second. And there are only 3 distinct positions that are a draw. So this is the underlying mathematics behind tic-tac-toe, right? There's no way to get around this. This is the mathematical truth of this particular game. That's a constitutive rule, that the underlying mathematics are there and they form this manner in which the game will behave. All right, that's a constitutive rules. So that's really all I want to talk about as far as rules are concerned. We're going to go into the idea of mechanics, and a lot of people consider mechanics the rules of a game, and in some ways they are, because they are really the only way that we have to interact with a game. They are the underlying rule set that affects a game and how you can play it, right? And obviously it goes farther than that, but we're going to take a look at mechanics and systems in the next video. That's all I really want to talk about in this particular video: operational, implicit, and constitutive rules. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, let me know down below with a thumbs up, and if you didn't, a thumbs down is perfectly fine. Listen, I love to read your comments, so please add some comments down there. Make me feel like I'm actually talking to somebody. All right, everyone? Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.